Hi, this is Dr. Gregory Sadler. I'm a professor of philosophy and the president and founder of an educational consulting company called Reason.io, where we put philosophy into practice. I've studied and taught philosophy for over 20 years, and I find that many people run into difficulties reading classic philosophical texts. Sometimes it's the way things are said or how the text is structured. But the concepts themselves are not always that complicated, and that's where I come in. To help students and lifelong learners, I've been producing longer lecture videos and posting them to YouTube. Many viewers say they find them useful. What you're currently watching is part of a new series of shorter videos, each of them focused on one core concept from an important philosophical text. I hope you find it useful as well. In the second of his letters to a German friend, Camus begins by sort of summarizing some of the key points from the first letter, and then he says that I've had time to think about these matters. Night is a time for meditation. For 3 years you've brought night to our towns and to our hearts. For 3 years we've been developing in the dark the thought, which now emerges fully armed to face you. So a thought that is emerging armed is a really central theme here. And he's going to move on immediately to tell us, the readers, and his German friend, what the central theme of this letter is. He says, now I can speak to you of the intelligence. And intelligence here is exactly what it sounds like in the French, intelligence, the capacity for not just thinking things through, but being consistent, holding oneself to standards. Towards the end of this, he's actually going to invoke, the values and their hierarchy, the ways in which we make sense of things. So he's going to tell his friend the certainty we now feel, right? Certitude. And actually, we now feel is kind of a loose translation here of certainty that we're in, that we inhabit. Où nous sommes, where we are, where we live. This certainty is one in which we see clearly and everything stands out sharp and clear. Actually, in which things are seen clearly, right? And he goes on to say the intelligence gives its blessing to courage. So courage is what you need in order to fight, to resist, to stand up for your country. And why would intelligence be leading to that? Well, it's got to have gone through a certain crucible, we might say. And Camus has talked about that without using the term intelligence quite so strongly in the previous letter. In this one, he's going to go on. He says, you who speak flippantly of the intelligence are greatly surprised to see it return from the shadow of death and suddenly decide to play its role in history. This is where I want to turn back towards you. And he says, the mere fact that the heart is certain does not make us the more cheerful. This alone gives a meaning to everything I'm writing you, but I want to square everything again with you, with your memory and our friendship. While I can still do so, I want to do for our friendship the one thing that a person can do for a friendship about to end. I want to make it explicit. And now that is a function of the intelligence as well, isn't it? Making things clear. He says, I've already answered the remark you don't love your country, discussed in the first letter. And now he says, I want to answer your impatient smile whenever you heard the word intelligence. And this is something that was characteristic of the Nazis. It's also characteristic of so many other violent people who exhibit a certain, not just thoughtlessness, but willingness to tear things down. that might stand in their way. They exalt action and violence. And so his friend had said, in all her intelligences, France repudiates herself. Some of your intellectuals prefer despair to their country, others the pursuit of an improbable truth. We put Germany before truth and beyond despair. And Camus goes on and says, well, if at times we seem to prefer justice to our country, that's because we wanted to love our country in justice as we wanted to love her in truth and hope. Again, themes from the first letter. But now we go beyond this. And he says, here's where we were different. Here's what separated us from you. We made demands, or we demanded things of our country. You were satisfied, as he's going to say, to serve the power of your nation, and we dreamed of giving ours her truth. And here he's going to talk about two different kinds of politics. A politics of reality, and in French, just réalité, sort of accommodating oneself to the way things are, probably also projecting an image of how things are that could be rather false. And then he talks about, and this is a very interesting feature of these particular letters, given that a lot of people think of Camus as somebody who's saying, oh, there's no meaning to anything, the absurdist idea. He talks about a politics of honor. And it's quite literally that in the French, honneur, right? And what is he going to mean by that? A little bit later, he's going to mention these concepts or ideas that are important, like justice, for example. Justice is not just a word. It's not just something we disagree about. It is something that is a value, whether or not we have it completely figured out or not. So he says that we had a conception of the politics of honor. When I say we, I'm not talking about our rulers, but a ruler hardly matters. So he's not talking about the leadership, who later on he'll talk about as being cowardly and all of that. Then he says, at this point I see you smiling as you did before, right? This impatient smile. You always distrusted words. So did I, but I used to distrust myself even more. And he talks about his German friend urging Camus to follow along the path that he took. So what is this path? Where intelligence is ashamed. It has shame of intelligence, where it, as he said, repudiates itself, where it tears itself down. The smart people are always uncertain. Ooh, I could be wrong about this. And, the Nazis looked at that and they're like, those egghead intellectuals, they can't accomplish anything. Get rid of them. What we need is power and blood and force and all of that. So he says, I couldn't follow you there. What is truth, you used to ask? Well, we don't quite know that, but we sure as hell know what falsehood is, Camus goes on to say, because you taught it to us, you Nazis, right, in the occupation. What is spirit? We know its contrary, which is murder, which, again, you Nazis have taught us. What is man? There I stop you, because we have an answer for that one. And this is something that is echoed both in the myth of Sisyphus and in his later work, The Rebel. Man is that force which ultimately cancels all tyrants and gods. And then he says he is the force of evidence. And in the French, it is évidence, right? Meaning something that shows itself that you can believe, that you can buy into, that you can trust. He says human evidence is what we must preserve. And our certainty at present comes from the fact that its fate and our country's fate are linked together. If nothing had any meaning, you, my German friend, would be right. Then we could all be nihilists and, adopt a course like the Nazis did. But there is something that still has a meaning. And again, notice, this is the same Camus who wrote the myth of Sisyphus that a lot of people take and say, oh, there's no meanings to anything. That's not what Camus was saying, right? He's just saying the meanings that are there are not immediately evident to us to pick up. We have to work, we have to revolt, we have to fight for them. And so he says, here is where you and I are going to part company. So what was the difference? Well, the Nazis, as he says, fight against everything in humanity that does not belong to the mother country. So anything that doesn't help out. He says, your sacrifices are inconsequential because your hierarchy is not the right one and your values have no place. The heart is not all you betray. You threw aside the intelligence and it takes its revenge. How so? Well, in the opposition that the French put into these things, he says, we formed an idea of our country that put her in her proper place. So it's not just country trumps everything. If you love your country, you sacrifice everything to that. No. If you love your country, as we saw in the first letter, then you hold her to standards. What are these other great concepts? Well, he names some of these. Friendship, amité, mankind, happiness, our desire for justice. And he says, this led us to be severe with our country. We judged our country. Because of that, maybe we didn't fight as well at the start, right? And we lost. But we sacrificed now for years under your occupation. He says, in the long run, we were the ones who were right. We didn't bring our country slaves and we debased nothing for her sake. We waited patiently until we saw clearly, and in poverty and suffering, we had the joy of fighting at the same time for all we loved. A joy that the Germans, the Nazis, don't have the capacity for, right? And so he's going to tell this interesting illustrative story about a boy who, along with a number of others, is being carted off in a truck to be executed. He doesn't understand what's going on because he's a boy, he's a child, right? The men are resigned to their fate, and there's a chaplain who is sitting there, who is listening to him. And he says, I haven't done anything. And the chaplain says, well, that's not the question. You must get ready to die properly. I am your friend and perhaps I understand you. But it is too late. I shall be with you and the good Lord will be too. You'll see how easy it is, right? Now, is that something that somebody should say to a kid who's going to die? No. That's barbaric. That's terrible. And he says that, he heard this story from a French priest who said, I'm ashamed for that man, the chaplain, and I'm pleased to think no French priest would be willing to make his God abet murder. But the German chaplain, it seemed natural to him to make his faith serve his country. Even the gods are mobilized in your country, Camus is going to say. They're on your side, as you say, but only as a result of coercion, right? So even religion gets turned into merely a tool. And the Nazis no longer make distinctions between anything, he says, that you use everything. You are nothing but a single impulse. And then he says something really quite interesting. Now you're fighting with the resources of blind anger, your mind on weapons and feats of arms rather than ideas, confusing every issue, following your obsession. The Nazis abjured the intelligence, and now they cannot get it back, right? They followed the path of saying, the country trumps truth. Now they can't figure out what truth could possibly be. And it makes them angry. And they strike out wildly. The French, on the other hand, as he's going to say, made a detour, one that we've talked about already in looking at the first letter. He says that our detour is finished. We started from the intelligence and its hesitations. We were powerless against wrath, your anger. But now, only a dead child is required for us to add anger to intelligence. Now we are 2 against 1. And he says, I want to speak to you about wrath. So he's going to speak about intelligence, but also about wrath or anger, colère in French. And he says, you Germans thought that we French didn't have that. He says, remember when I expressed amazement at the outburst of one of your superiors, you said to me, that too is good, but you don't understand there's a virtue the French lack, anger. Do the French actually lack that? And he says, no, the French are difficult on the subject of virtues. They don't assume them unless they have to. They're not going to make a show of it. This gives their wrath, as he's going to say, something different. Silence and strength that you're just beginning to feel. And he says, it is with that sort of wrath, the only kind I recognize in myself, I'm going to end this letter. So Camus is saying anger is not something to embrace just for its own sake, but it can be a very powerful aid to the intelligence once the intelligence has gone through these sacrifices that he's talking about, and there is something to be genuinely angry about, not just lashing out because you didn't get what you wanted, but rather because there are things, as we called them, these great concepts that are being violated. And he goes on and he says, we know what we're paying for. The war didn't satisfy us, right? The war that our, people had to choose instead of accepting it from idiotic or cowardly governments, a war in which they recognize themselves and are fighting for a certain idea they've formed of themselves. And this cost them a dreadful price. He says that, people are volunteering and they are dying because of it. Courage steps up and volunteers. Every day you are shooting down our purest spirits. And he says, you've never known what to select, but you know how to destroy. And we, who call ourselves defenders of the spirit, know nevertheless the spirit can die when the force crushing it is great enough. But we have faith in another force. And isn't it interesting to see him talking about faith or confidence here? Another thing that's going to come up, which might seem a little uncharacteristic of Camus, particularly if you're thinking the myth of Sisyphus, where he says that hope is not something that we want. He talks about a hopeless hope, how it's being translated. Désespérant espoir. So, des here is the opposite. Désespérant, despairing hope. A hope that arises out of despair, but is hope nonetheless. And he says that is what sustains us in our difficult moments. But he's going to conclude by talking about the French being capable of wrath. So we need to interpret this modality of hope as being tied in with wrath, which is itself in this letter tied in with the intelligence which the French, not all of them of course, but enough of them conserved, while the Nazis tried to set aside, denigrate, and eliminate. So the intelligence now, armed with hopeless hope and wrath, can take not revenge, but you could say a rectification, a putting things right.